On television, the news anchor reports that Stella Vermillion, the second princess of the Vermillion Empire, will be visiting Japan today. It is then revealed that Stella was accepted at Hagun Academy with the highest score of all time. And not only that, she's also said to be the strongest and a blessed knight. Meanwhile, Ikki Kurogane, a teenager known as the worst one throughout his school for his lack of talent, prepares himself for his usual morning training. The TV starts to become noisy when the news broadcasts the arrival of Stella Vermillion, followed by Ikki turning his TV off. Simultaneously, outside the airport, Stella is greeted by the director and the two soon depart. Thereafter, the narrator explains the difference between the gifted and the non-gifted. He believes that the gifted are superior in every way to the non-gifted ones, but wonders if it has to be that way. In a flashback scene, a young Ikki is shown. There, a man questions Ikki if he is frustrated because he is the weakest one, and he advises Ikki to hold on to that frustration as it's a clear indication that he hasn't given up yet on himself. Meanwhile, in the present, Ikki is seen training with dedication, where he introduces himself as an aspiring magical knight. Upon finishing his training, Ikki returns to his room and walks in on a half-naked Stella, who is changing, and the situation is made worse due to Ikki's bad attempt to get even by stripping himself. Ikki is then summoned to the director's office, where Kurono criticizes him for his indecent behavior. However, he defends himself by stating that he was just trying to handle the situation while trying to be a gentleman as much as possible. Using his words against him, the director asks Ikki to be a gentleman and apologize to Stella for his inappropriate behavior. Soon, Stella is summoned to the director's office for Ikki to apologize to her formally. As Ikki apologizes, Stella inquires to Ikki about his name. She then expresses her impressiveness over Ikki's manly traits. Although she first decides to make this an international issue, but ends up being generous in the end. She, however, demands Ikki to perform harakiri, a ritual to end one's life as an apology, much to Ikki's dismay, who accidentally blurts out that he refuses to commit suicide just for seeing Stella in her underwear. Enraged over Ikki's comment, Stella starts to emit flames, with Kurono leaving the office to avoid getting involved. Ikki, in desperation, claims that he was mesmerized by Stella's beauty, surprising the girl as her flames weaken out of shyness. As Ikki tries to explain the situation again, Kurono comes back and reveals that both Ikki and Stella are roommates, much to their surprise. She then brings the two of them to their room and shows the reasoning as to why they are roommates, much to Stella's displeasure as she gives more impossible demands to Ikki. To solve the problem, Kurono gives both of them the option of settling the issue with a duel, which eventually escalates into a duel with the loser becoming the winner's slave for life under Stella's demand. Ikki tells her to not be overconfident since there is no way to know the victor until they fight, and Stella is later seen preparing for her match as she reminisces about her efforts to master her powers and is displeased with how others view her as someone with talent solely. Meanwhile, at the battle arena, Ikki is seen conversing with Kurono on the terms of his graduation, which is winning the 7 Stars Sword Art Festival. Stella then arrives at the arena, and their match officially begins with both sides materializing their respective weapons. Stella starts the duel by attacking aggressively, but is continuously countered by Ikki, who counters back after copying Stella's sword techniques, almost landing an attack on Stella, but is blocked due to the difference in magic. Stella, while lamenting on winning in her undesired way, activates one of her strongest attacks, Catharterio Salamandra, out of respect towards Ikki. Ikki willingly admits that he lacks the ability as a Mage Knight and reveals his trump card, Itushura, which forcefully removes all of Ikki's physical limits, drastically increasing his powers. Dodging all of Stella's attacks, Ikki successfully lands an attack on Stella, winning the duel before collapsing due to exhaustion. Stella is then seen in the hospital room being taken care of, and Kurono comes to her room. Stella questions Kurono on how Ikki could be an F-rank knight, to which Kurono explains that the system is based on a blazer's ability, not the actual fighting ability. Stella asks Kurono how Ikki failed, and Kurono explains that it is a complicated situation. Kurono then recommends to Stella to follow in Ikki's footsteps, as he is someone who works hard as well, believing that it won't waste her time. Afterwards, Stella enters her room to find Ikki sleeping on one of the beds. She gets on top of Ikki and begins to feel him, becoming shocked at her first touch of a man. Trying to be as stealthy as possible, she gets her hand stuck when Ikki turns around, however. she somehow manages to get it out. She then proceeds to feel Ikki's abs, but backs off after realizing that she shouldn't partake in such activities as she is unmarried and a princess. However, her thoughts collide as she deems it fair to feel Ikki's body since he saw her in her underwear. Stella then hits her head after Ikki wakes up to find out what she is doing with him. Later, Ikki applies a band-aid to Stella's wound and expresses gladness that it wasn't a bad injury. Stella then talks with Ikki and apologizes for labeling him when she didn't really know him. Ikki smiles and reminds Stella of their bet. The loser will have to obey the winner for the rest of their life. However, Stella quickly terms their bet as a figure of speech. Seeing that Stella is showing hesitation, Ikki decides to provoke her intentionally by mentioning that he thought the Vermillion family would always keep their promises. This causes Stella to burst out of anger, saying that she's ready to do anything, and although she believes that Ikki is trying to fulfill his erotic desires with the help of this bet, that's not the case as Ikki soon orders Stella to be his roommate. Ikki explains to Stella that he wants to be closer to her, making her embarrassed. Stella agrees, and they both bump each other's fists, promising to make their arrangement work. Afterwards, a silver-haired girl is seen on a train, thinking about someone she loves dearly, suffering great pain because of their mother and father. Moreover, this girl's parents are still trying to hurt this guy even more. Stella and Ikki are then seen having just finished their daily 20-kilometer run together. Concerned for her health, Ikki tells Stella that she doesn't have to come with him on these long runs if it's getting too much for her, but Stella replies that she's fine with it. Ikki then offers Stella a drink from his bottle, and she is initially shocked at the offer, as it would be an indirect kiss. She still takes it, as Ikki looks at the distant sky with a happy expression. Seeing this, Stella asks Ikki about it, to which Ikki talks about his excitement about his sister coming to the school. Worried, Stella asks if they are half-siblings or something like that, but Ikki responds and mentions that they are full-blooded siblings. Stella then tells Ikki that she will allow him to meet his sister then. However, Ikki remains confused since he didn't even ask her permission. Later, Yuri Oreki, the homeroom teacher, introduces herself to all of the freshmen. Turns out that these students don't have any class on that day, but Yuri reminds them about the criteria to participate in this year's Seven Sword Art Festival. It is then revealed that, up until last year, this school selected the representatives based on their ability scores, but things have changed this year. This time, it will be actual fighting, where all the students have to participate and only the top 6 winners will become the school's representatives. This criteria is deemed fairer, and the school matches are scheduled to be started from next week. Moreover, the students will be informed of their fight schedules and opponents through their student ID. Curious, Stella questions Yuri about how many matches each student will get to take part in. In response, Yuri reveals that each person will be getting well over 10 matches. Yuri then cheers on her students to participate in the selection battles, and then quickly throws up blood, soon after falling unconscious. We then see her in the infirmary along with Stella and Ikki. Ikki explains to Stella that it is thanks to Yuri that he is able to come to school in the first place, and Yuri also mentions how unfortunate last year was. Ikki and Stella walk through the hall, and Stella asks about what happened last year. Ikki explains he wasn't able to take classes last year, and before he can properly explain further, a girl named Kayagami appears to hug him, causing Stella to get jealous and walk away. Ikki chases after her as the girl with silver hair appears, and he recognizes her as Shizuku, his sister. Shizuku then gives him a kiss on the mouth, shocking everyone in the vicinity, including Ikki and Stella. Stella interrupts before Shizuku can kiss Ikki once again, causing Shizuku to become angered by her interruption. Stella explains that she interrupted because she is Ikki's servant, and also states that they slept together in the same bed. Shizuku then decides to deploy her weapon, Yoshigure, to kill Stella, and is confident that she will be able to do so as her element is water. Stella deploys her weapon in response, and the two clash, causing an explosion in the hall. They are then punished with cleaning duty for their actions. After they finish cleaning, Shizuku and Stella continue to argue, causing Shizuku to accidentally bring up Ikki's past and how it felt as though he didn't exist to his family. Shizuku then ends the conversation, leaving for her room, and she is welcomed back to her room by her roommate Nagi. Stella meets Ikki outside in front of the school, where she questions him if he was treated like he never existed by his family. Ikki decides to tell her the truth and depicts how his family has treated him over the years. One day he couldn't take it anymore and decided to run away during a very bad snowstorm. The moment he was about to collapse, Ryoma, his grandfather, appeared to him, encouraging him not to give up as he carried him back home. Ikki continues to explain that his family has even pressured the school into making him fail, to make sure that he never becomes a knight. While Ikki and Stella are talking, Shizuku talks with her roommate and tells him about Ikki's situation and how she learned of it. Shizuku then tells him about her resolve to give Ikki fatherly, motherly, brotherly, and sisterly love. The scene cuts to Ikki in the bath, and Stella comes in wearing a pink bikini, offering to wash his body. Ikki is reluctant, but Stella insists that a servant must serve her master. Unwilling to make Stella his bathing partner, Ikki tells her that he didn't ask her to wash him, but Stella replies that doing something without being asked is what defines a servant. Later, while washing the front of Ikki's body, Ikki keeps staring at Stella's bouncing breasts in a bikini top. While doing so, she asks him if he likes breasts, as he seemed to be enjoying himself when Kagami pressed her breasts against him. Ikki quickly apologizes and admits that he does indeed like them, and much to surprise, Stella pushes her breasts against his back. In the process of washing Ikki's back, her bikini falls off, and she lets out a scream in embarrassment when Ikki notices this. Ikki and Stella are then seen practicing, fighting a mock duel against each other. Both seem to be doing well, when suddenly, Ikki calls for a quit. When the practice ends, he learns that Stella is going to fight against Momotani, according to the email that she received. Ikki tries to tell Stella about her opponent and the weapon that he uses, but she refuses his help, mentioning that she doesn't like to know information about her opponents beforehand. She believes that these matches are practice for when she encounters unknown blazers in the future, where it would be impossible to know the opponent's abilities. However, at the same time, she believes that it is important to research one's opponents. Thereafter, she notices a sudden change in Ikki's expression and asks what happened. Ikki explains that it's strange that they are so opposite, yet they get along with each other so well, causing Stella to go all red in embarrassment. Soon, the first bell rings to go to class, and before they head back, Stella tries to ask Ikki out on a date on Saturday. But before she can complete her sentence, Ikki receives a mail, making Stella wonder if it is about his opponent. Turns out that the mail is actually from Shizuku, who asks Ikki if he is free tomorrow and proposes to go shopping with her. Ikki then responds to Shizuku's message with a yes, leaving Stella to grow furious. When Ikki goes to the designated meeting spot with Stella, it leads Shizuku into a bickering battle with her, and with this behind them, they begin their shopping trip. Thereupon, Shizuku and Stella go back and forth with each other as they both try to get closer to Ikki. Nagi also introduces himself to Ikki and jokes that maybe he will try to seduce him as well, prompting Shizuku to take out her knife. Later, the 4 Hagun Academy students travel to the mall, where Ikki notices Shizuku looking very well dressed, and Stella is amazed at the mall. Stella tries to hold hands with Ikki after seeing Shizuku do so, but is unable to due to Shizuku's interference. While the students are enjoying the day, mall security is secretly overtaken by terrorists. While at the mall, the students are seen enjoying some sweets, and Shizuku is embarrassed when Ikki reaches out to clean her face when it has cream on it. Stella tries to get Ikki to do the same with her, but ends up with different results. Nagi and Ikki then go to the bathroom by themselves, where Ikki notes that Shizuku doesn't usually open up to people, yet is shown to be very close to him, and he thanks Nagi for being friends with her. Nagi then notes that Ikki is exactly as described, very strong and kind, but also notes something ambiguous. Nagi then quiets Ikki as 2 terrorists barge into the bathroom, one shooting his gun immediately as he enters. Ikki and Nagi, however, are nowhere to be found. As the terrorists leave, Nagi and Ikki come out of a different dimension, wanting to find out what is going on. Nagi reveals his weapon, Darkness Hermit, and explains he can move around in the shadows using it. Ikki and Nagi then appear at the security room, where they find the 2 security guards knocked out. Ikki calls Kurono, who tells Ikki that the situation is already on the news, and the police have surrounded the mall, explaining that the terrorist group is Rebellion, a group that believes blazers are a new breed of human, and they have attacked the mall, demanding a huge ransom for the hostages. Stella and Shizuku are seen with the hostages, and Shizuku tells Stella not to do anything as she has come up with a plan. Just then, a mother cries out for one of the terrorists, not to hurt her son, but to no avail as the terrorist tries to kill the kid. He is, however, saved by Stella, who is now revealed. Bishu, the leader of the group, appears and begins to berate his subordinate before having a change of thought and turning his own gun on the mother. Stella tries to save the mother, but Bisho is able to stop her and uses her own strength against her with his weapon. He then uses the mother to try and negotiate with Stella, demanding her to get on her knees and apologize naked. She quietly strips, angering Ikki, who is watching this unfold from the balcony above. Ikki tries to go down to Stella before she strips some more, but is stopped by Nagi's Shadowbind, who reveals that Shizuku is currently creating a water barrier unnoticed. At that moment, Shizuku uses Shuha Suiren, and Bishu orders his subordinates to shoot the hostages. He then sees Ikki and tries to shoot him, but is unsuccessful, as Ikki draws his weapon and uses his seven-sword technique, Reiko, to cut off one of Bishu's arms. Bishu is then bound by Ikki, and his subordinates are knocked unconscious by Stella. Bishu, however, still has one more subordinate, who is hiding among the hostages and demands Nagi to unbind Bishu by holding a woman hostage again. But another Hagun Academy blazer comes and knocks out both the subordinate and Bishu, saving everyone. The person is identified by Ikki as Kirihara, who seems to know Ikki as well. The students go outside the mall, and Shizuku and Stella both agree that they don't like Kirihara, who is currently getting praised by girls. Ikki, however, thanks him for saving them. Kirihara responds by calling Ikki weak and mentions that it's his responsibility to help weaklings like him. He then asks him if he is still on the path of chivalry with that miserable power of his. This constant mockery only adds fuel to the fire, as Stella grows angrier and begins to argue that Kirihara is the one who is weak compared to Ikki. She goes as far as calling Ikki in a league way ahead of Kirihara, but this only makes him laugh hysterically. Kirihara then proceeds to approach Ikki and tells him that he should tell the truth, that he was the one who was too scared to face him in battle and ran away. Afterwards, he tells Ikki to look at his student handbook, where it is revealed to him that Kirihara will be his first opponent for the selection battle, who also happens to be the one who represented their school last year. Kirihara then leaves, calling Ikki the worst one, hoping that he won't run away this time. Afterwards, the tournament matches finally begin, and the very first match is ready to commence as the two opponents face each other. Stella battles against Momotani, also known as the Heavy Tank. Momotani's weapon is a very rare armor called Goliath, and he is capable of releasing a heavy charge from it. The crowd begins to cheer for Momotani, believing that no one can defeat him in close combat. However, Stella notes that Momotani understands that this is a real fight and that his opponent is actually a very talented knight. Soon, the battle begins, and before Stella can even make a move, Momotani gives up due to the fear of being covered in Stella's flames. Shizuku and Nagi, while in the locker room, talk about how easy Stella's match was while Stella is showering. Nagi comments how being an A-ranked knight is so cool. However, Shizuku mentions that Stella's opponent was embarrassingly weak, hence she won. She then comes out of the shower and congratulates the two for winning their respective first matches as well. Kagami from the newspaper club then barges in wanting to interview the 3 first years as she pursues her goal of becoming the best journalist. Kagami then decides to share gossip with Nagi, and the two become really close with each other. Later, Ikki watches one of Kirihara's matches and accidentally imagines himself in the position of the helpless girl who is going against him as she is about to be struck down with one of Kirihara's arrows. Stella then comes in and they talk about Kirihara's ability, area invisibility, allowing him to shoot arrows at blazers from a safe place. Ikki notices Stella's worry for him and he assures her that he will win. He then goes on a run where he runs into Nagi, who wants to know the story between Kirihara and him, knowing that Ikki and Kirihara have some sort of history. Ikki then recollects his first year at Hagun Academy as he tells Nagi the story. He tells Nagi that the head of the Kurogane family had connections to the director of the school at the time, and the director was looking for a reason to get him expelled. And this is when Kirihara got fixated on him, thinking of him as an easy target. He challenged Ikki to a duel, stating that the teachers might recognize his abilities if he won, but Ikki refused, and Kirihara just attacked him from behind. Ikki, back in the present now, tells Nagi that he was not able to fight back in any way, as he thought he would be expelled for giving into provocation. Nagi then asks Ikki what he would do if things hadn't changed as they did, and Ikki states that he would keep trying to prove his strength no matter what, which prompts Nagi to tell him that he seems to be used to being hurt, and that he hopes Ikki will meet someone who hears the screams in his heart. The next day, while Ikki registers for participation in the selection battle, he is approached by Nene Seikyo, who is impressed by his no-hesitant thought on agreeing to the registration form, which says that the matches might be life-threatening, as so many others do. Ikki then recognizes Nene as a strong fighter as Nen closes the space between her and him in an instant and offers private lessons for Ikki. Kurono, however, interrupts and drags Nen away from Ikki so she can return to her duties as the commentator of the matches. Ikki then goes to the waiting room where he tries to focus. He closes his eyes and thinks about all the events leading up to this point, becoming more agitated as he thinks on, and in an instant, it is already time for his match. Ikki and Kirihara are introduced by the announcer, and they both draw out their weapons as the buzzer begins the match. Kirihara summons a forest and uses his area of invisibility, beginning to fire his arrows at Ikki. Ikki is able to figure out the trajectory of the arrows and find out where Kirihara is the moment he fires an arrow. Kirihara then decides to play a game with Ikki and calls out where he is going to shoot Ikki. As his game begins, he unveils that he can hide his arrows in his area of invisibility and is able to shoot Ikki down without much effort. Stella, Shizuku, and Nagi are then seen in the stands watching on. Stella wonders why Ikki didn't use his technique the moment the match started, and Nagi explains that he couldn't as Ikki lost his usual state of mind due to his nerves getting to him. Kirihara then begins to mock Ikki as he continues to shoot arrows from various angles towards him, mocking his very need to win the Sword Art Festival just to graduate. The crowd joins in Kirihara's mockery of Ikki and begins to chant his moniker, the worst one, with Kirihara leading them. Stella, listening to all of the insults and becoming more and more frustrated by the chanting of the crowd, finally stops the chanting and tells Ikki to get up, encouraging him to fight back against Kirihara. Kirihara then decides to aim at Ikki's brain as Ikki activates his noble art, Itushura. Kirihara fires his arrow, however. It is caught by Ikki, who knows he would aim at his chest instead of his brain, terrifying Kirihara. Nene then explains that Ikki is able to take in all the logic of his opponent's technique and use it against them, naming it perfect vision. Kirihara, terrified, fires everything at Ikki, even using his technique, Million Rain, but is unsuccessful as Ikki already knows where his arrows is coming from, as well as him. Ikki then charges at Kirihara, but before he cuts him, Kirihara admits defeat, being terrified of getting cut. Ikki stops his attack before cutting Kirihara, commenting that he missed his aim by millimeters and needs training. The commentator announces Ikki's win, and soon after he collapses and is taken to the infirmary room for treatment. At the infirmary, Ikki wakes up to find Stella sleeping at his bedside, where he sees her drooling. Later, he confesses to seeing Stella drooling, and this causes her to grow angry as she starts throwing everything she can find towards him. He then apologizes to Stella for making her worry, but she denies being worried at any point. Ikki, after Stella has calmed down, tells her that he likes her, making her blush uncontrollably. Ikki even mentions how he is glad that he met her, but this makes her blush even more. Stella, however, stops him and instead tells him to close his eyes. After he does so, she kisses him on the cheek, leading Ikki to question Stella if she likes him back, to which she replies with a nod. Ikki responds by hugging her, and they each promise each other to fight in the finals of the Sword Art Festival. 2 weeks later, Stella is training alone, remembering the events of the other day, and she grows angry because her and Ikki still haven't done anything that lovers do since then. We finds out that Ikki has managed to win all of his 5 matches until now, and he has lost the name Worst One, instead being given the moniker of another one. The following day, in class, Kagami wants to learn how to become a better swordsman and asks him to teach her how to handle his sword. Stella is on the verge of burning the entire building down, but Ikki agrees anyway. So Kagami begins writing the headline for tomorrow's news, saying Ikki is going to teach girls how his sword will penetrate them. Meanwhile, the other guys want to eliminate him for stealing all the girls. Just then, Yuri walks in, but starts vomiting blood right away, making the students worried for her health. Back at their dorm, Stella tries asking Ikki if they can do lover stuff, but realizes that he's already passed out. The next morning, Ikki begins teaching the girls how to balance to strengthen their core muscles, but while Kagami is interviewing him, a group of men gang up on Ikki and summon their devices. One of them even points his gun at Ikki, but when they rush forward, Ikki deflects all of their attacks and knocks them away. When their leader nearly fires his weapon, Ikki launches a pebble that stops the gun from firing. As he walks up toward him, he claps in front of his face. When Ikki tells them they are using their weapons against the rules, they all bow down to Ikki and apologize, saying they are just envious of him since he is very strong and always chatting with girls. One of them expresses his desire to be strong, like Ikki, while the other wishes to be popular among the girls as well, and they even go as far as asking Ikki for help. Kagami thinks they are disgusting, but Ikki decides to teach them as well. Soon, a bunch of girls walk up to Ikki and ask him to help them as well, to which he agrees. Later, Stella and Ikki are involved in a conversation where Ikki mentions how these people have legitimate abilities and with his help, they can grow even stronger. Meanwhile, Stella is worried about making a move towards Ikki and asks if he is thirsty. Ikki replies with a yes, when suddenly, Shizuku appears with a drink for him. To make matters worse for Stella, Shizuku ends up convincing Ikki to teach her the sword. Stella then abruptly asks Ikki to teach her as well, but Ikki seems reluctant since he is not good enough to teach her. This causes Stella to frown over Ikki, and she tells him that he doesn't want him to teach her anything anyway. She then runs away while Kagami watches her leave. As she's sulking across the campus, Nagi asks her if she just saw Shizuku. Stella replies with a yes and questions Nagi about a game that he is holding. Nagi explains that it's an otome game that he borrowed from Kagami. Throughout the night, Stella plays the game, realizing this is everything she is missing. In this game, she can be honest about wanting to stay with Ikki, and she wishes she could hold hands with him or even kiss him. However, Ikki steps in at that moment, and when Stella screams at him to knock first, he tells her that they will be going to the pool for training and asks if she would want to join them. These words confuse Stella as she screams that he won't be training her anyway, but Ikki decides to explain the reason he refuses to train her. The next day on the bus, Stella smiles while sitting next to Ikki, and Shizuku wonders what they could have done together the previous night. While she stares at Ikki, she remembers how Ikki told her she has already surpassed the level he could teach at. Because of that, he wants her to always be the only one who surpasses his imagination. After hearing those words, she realizes she is special to Ikki and that he is her lover after all. At the same time, the guys begin crying tears of joy for following their master this far, and in the distance, a mysterious girl stares at them. Eventually, the training session begins, and Ikki tells everyone to dive into the water for training, but Stella stays afar. She begins bouncing the massive ball that she is holding until it slips away and hits the mysterious girl. Later on, she wishes to spend some time with Ikki and dives into the water as Ikki is teaching the others. But Kagami comes asking how far she has gone with Ikki. This makes Stella drown a bit, and once she is outside the water, she starts coughing from all the water she swallowed, and Stella says that a princess like her would never do anything like that. Those words make Kagami realize she can finally steal Ikki for herself, but Stella screams at her that Ikki is her boyfriend and that she can't do that. This lures her into Kagami's trap, however. She promises to keep it a secret so their love can flourish, but starts asking what they do every night. Poor Stella starts blushing, saying that she hasn't even kissed him yet. However, Kagami screams at Stella to make the move already, but Stella worries he will think she's a lewd girl. Even then, Kagami reminds her that men are creatures who might run away if she's too slow, and when Stella says she would never want that to happen, Kagami gets up and runs off, telling her that she'll call Ikki so she can talk with him. When the two of them are alone, Ikki wonders what she wants to talk about, but she's too embarrassed and asks him what he thinks of her swimsuit. Ikki reveals that he's been meaning to talk to her and mentions how they haven't done any lover stuff for the past 2 weeks. This makes Stella believe that Ikki has already decided to leave her in his mind a long time ago, making her cry. As she starts crying, she tells him that she agrees with his thinking because their relationship hasn't been working out. When he tries to hold her, she slaps his hand away. She tells him that he's the unsatisfied one, but Ikki thinks she's the one who hates him with the way she's acting. However, Stella tells him that she actually likes him, and Ikki tells her that he likes her even more. Ikki then responds to not doing lover stuff, and he mentions that he doesn't want her to think that he's a disgusting creep. And after all, she's the one who hasn't made any moves on him. Stella tells him that she would never want to seem like a loser and get rejected, but Ikki reveals that it's the same for him. While screaming, Ikki asks why they are fighting, but Stella screams back, saying she has no idea. After they calm down, Ikki asks her to confess what she truly wants at the same time as him, and they both find out that they want to kiss. In the very next moment, the two lean in and share a passionate kiss. Later, throughout the bus ride, they continue holding each other's hands, but just then, their phone's notifications go off, alerting them regarding their next opponents. Ikki finds out that he will be facing Renren Tomaru from Class 2, whereas Stella is scheduled to face Ikazuchi Seijo from Class 2 as well. Afterwards, we see Ikki fighting Renren as she uses her Mach Grid Noble Art, which allows her to accumulate speed, making her circle around Ikki at speeds going faster than sonic sound, leaving Ikki in the middle of the arena. While Renren is fighting Ikki, Seijo fights against Stella using his weight accumulation, which allows him to make his device heavier with every swing. He then uses his crescendo axe to slash down at Stella, and at the very same time, Renren uses her Blackbird technique against Ikki. Ikki, however, dodges Renren, and Stella breaks Seijo's device, and uses her flames to put Seijo down, giving both of them the win. After their respective matches, Shizuku tries to get close to Ikki once again, even offering to nurse him overnight, annoying Stella. Nagi then asks how long Ikki is willing to let it go on, and Ikki decides to acknowledge that he has a stalker, much to the shock of both Stella and Shizuku. The stalker is revealed to be a girl who tries to explain her actions, but then ends up falling over the handrail and landing in the water below, causing her to become unconscious. At the hospital, the girl introduces herself as Ayase Ayatsuji when she wakes up, prompting Ikki to ask her if she is related to Kaito Ayatsuji, which she is, getting Ikki excited. Shizuku explains to a confused Stella that Kaito is a master swordsman who won many tournaments, although he himself is not a blazer. Ikki asks what has happened to Kaito, as he hasn't heard anything about him recently, and Ayase confirms that he is hospitalized. Shizuku then asks Ayase why she was stalking Ikki in the first place, and Ayase explains that she needed to figure out a way to ask Ikki for help with her swordplay, but was too shy to ask. Ikki then decides to invite Ayase to his sword practice match. During his training session with Ayase, out in the forest with everyone else, he deduces that Ayase believes she is not getting any better because she is not reaching Kaito's level. He further explains that she could not imitate Kaito simply because of their different genders. Ikki suggests a change in stance, but warns her that once he changes her stance, she can never go back to her father's ways, to which Ayase agrees. Ikki then begins to touch her all over to fix her stance. Fixing her stance, he demonstrates how much the stance improves Ayase's ability by having her defend much quicker against his attack. After training, Ikki and Ayase walk home together along with the others, and Ikki apologizes for touching Ayase so much. Ayase, however, doesn't mind and even tells him that he reminds her of her father Kaito. Stella asks Shizuku, who are both walking behind Ikki and Ayase, if she is bothered by Ayase being so close to him. Shizuku states that Ayase is not flirting with Ikki, and she doesn't care since it makes Ikki happy, even if she is not his partner. Ikki and Stella are then seen in their room, and Stella confesses that she felt a little insecure when Ikki was touching Ayase. Ikki then tells Stella that the only person he will ever like is her. Later, Stella and Ayase are seen sparring with wooden swords, and Stella compliments Ayase's ability. Ikki, Stella, and Ayase all then go out to a diner, and there Ayase converses with Ikki and mutters to herself during the meal that she wants to take back something that was taken from her. Just then, students from another school, one of whom is named Kurado, seem to know Ayase as well as the others. Kurado then decides to apologize for interrupting their meal and pours Ikki a drink as a token of his apology. While Ikki tries to drink from the glass, Kurado hits him with a bottle, smashing it. One of the people at the restaurant wants to call the police, but is stopped by a blonde woman. Stella gets angry at Kurado and wants to fight him. However, Ikki stops her, smiling and saying that it was an accident. Kurado decides to leave after spitting on him, figuring out that he wouldn't be able to get a reaction from him. Stella asks why Ikki purposely didn't dodge Kurado's first hit, and Ikki replies that it would have complicated things, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to easily defeat Kurado. A boy from Hagun Academy then appears and explains that Kurado is the ace of Donru Academy, and one of the best 8 in the 7 Sword Art Festival. The blonde-haired woman also joins the conversation and states that she would have held everyone down if Ikki had retaliated. Ikki tells Stella that the boy is Otakata and the blonde-haired woman is Kanata, both from the student council. Otakata then decides to heal Ikki's wounds. Ikki, Stella, and Ayase then walk home, and Ikki comments that the mark Utakata heals as though it is gone. Stella then asks Ayase who Kurado is, but Ayase is unable to tell her as her student ID rings, and both Ikki and Ayase find out that they will be each other's opponents. The next morning, Ikki, Stella, and Shizuku find that Ayase has not come to practice. After practice, Ikki meets up with Nagi, who believes that since Ayase has no chance in the match tomorrow, she will try something before the match. Ikki then shows Nagi his student ID, which displays a message from Ayase wanting to meet him alone. Nagi warns Ikki that if he does plan on meeting her, he should plan on ending his friendship with her as well. Ikki, however, is confident that no matter what, he will win and keep his promise to Stella. Late into the night, Ikki goes to the roof where Ayase is, giving a ghastly smile to Ikki's presence. Ikki and Ayase are seen on the roof in the middle of the night, and Ayase asks Ikki what he would do if he fought against someone he could never beat. Ikki replies by stating that no matter what, he will fight fairly. Ayase, however, disagrees with Ikki, stating that it is justice with no results and does not matter. She then draws her device, and the fence behind her somehow comes apart as she falls through it, falling off the roof. Ikki yells after a falling Ayase and uses his Itu Shura to catch her before she falls to the ground, landing them both safely in the water nearby. They both climb out of the water, and Ikki asks Ayase why she has done that. Ayase tells Ikki that she wanted him to use his Itu Shura, knowing that he wouldn't be able to use it during their match in 10 hours. Stella is then seen sleeping, dreaming about Ikki, when her dream is interrupted by a worn-out Ikki who falls directly on top of her. Stella assumes that it is a Japanese nighttime sneak, but then realizes something is wrong as Ikki is not moving. Ikki, the next morning, wakes up in the hospital bed, finding Shizuku, Stella, and Nagi there when he awakens. He tries to explain to them what happened last night, but is interrupted by Kurono, who wants him to come with her. At Kurono's office, she figures that Ikki has something to do with the destroyed side of the building, to which he admits, but won't give the reason why. He then asks Kurono about Ayase, and she decides to tell him about what happened to her father 2 years ago, when he could no longer hold a sword after losing in a one-on-one match to Kurado, giving him all of the land and also the dojo that Ayatsuji once held. Ikki asks what happened to Kaito, and Kurono states that he has been unconscious since that match. During Kurono's explanation, Ayase is seen with her unconscious father, thinking about her father's words of never losing her pride as a swordsman. She then remembers one of her challenges against Kurado, in which Kurado told her to never come back. Ayase then thinks that if she could go to the Seven Sword Art Festival, she could fight Kurado once again. Meanwhile, Kaito apologizes in his comatose state, and Ikki and his friends are seen outside, wondering what to do after hearing Ayase's story. Ikki decides he will fight valiantly against Ayase, but before then, he asks Stella to come with him somewhere. The arena where Ikki and Ayase's match will take place is seen as the announcer Hangetsu Tsukuyomi introduces herself as well as her co-announcer Yuri Oreki. The announcers then introduce the combatants, Ikki and Ayase, as they enter the ring. They both draw out their respective devices as the match begins. Ikki quickly jumps at Ayase. However, he is somehow cut in multiple areas instead. Ayase does this once again to Ikki's back and then charges at him. She explains to Ikki that he is being cut by her noble art, Mark of the Wind. She also explains that opening up wounds is her device's ability. She and Ikki both think about the ability, and Ikki realizes that Ayase had cut the area before the start of the match, leaving behind many unseen marks that would cause whirlwind slashes on Ikki when activated the moment he gets close to one. Nagi, in the stands, figures out Ayase's trap and knows that it is illegal to do something like that, which would give Ikki the automatic win when it is found out. Ayase is then seen noticing that Yuri hasn't noticed what she has done and wonders if Ikki has. She then tries to use Mark of the Wind against Ikki, but he is able to dodge it, much to Ayase's surprise. However, Ayase uses her Hizume to make a little cut bigger on Ikki's arm, causing him to drop to one knee. She then decides to go after a vital spot and rushes him, attacking very fiercely. She nearly gets to Ikki, however, he stops Ayase's attack with the hilt of his sword, called Irregular Guard. He then smiles at Ayase, seeing that she is who he has always thought she was. We then find out that before the match started, Ikki and Stella informed Yuri that Ayase is going to cheat during the match, but he asked her to look the other way when she does. Yuri asks him the reason why, and he mentions that it's because he wants to believe in Ayase and not end his friendship with her, as it would be the same as losing the match. Ikki then tells Ayase that her swordsmanship and style are off, ignoring not only what he taught her, but also what she could already do before, and he states that it's because her mind is lost. Ayase ignores what he says and believes what she is doing is the only way. Ikki then decides to bring back Ayase's pride using all of his strength, and he charges towards Ayase. As he charges, Ayase tries to use the Mark of the Wind, however, he dodges every attack. Ayase then slams her sword through the ground, causing an explosion, and tries to attack Ikki. However, it is revealed to be an afterimage of Ikki as he activates his fourth technique, Shinhiro, and they both slash each other, with Ayase falling afterward. Shizuku then notices that Ikki had switched to his phantom form before cutting Ayase. Ayase tries to get back up, but is unable to and begins to cry out of frustration. Ikki asks her if her soul is really in this match without her pride, and Ayase's device disappears, and she admits that Ikki is right and admits defeat. After the match, Ikki offers Ayase to help her get back her pride. Ayase wonders why he would do this, and Ikki responds by telling her that the reason is that they are friends. Ikki then offers his hand to her, and she notices the calluses on his hands, just like her father's. She then takes Ikki's hand and she asks for his help. It is explained that Ayase's father, Kaito Ayatsuji, retired during Ayase's junior high years due to heart problems. Although he was unable to hold a sword properly, he continued to instruct Ayase and some other students. While training Ayase to use the Teni Mohu, Kaito told Ayase to never forget that the Ayatsuji sword style is to protect people. Back in the present Ayase, Ikki and Stella talk about Kurado, a man who attacks local schools unofficially. Ayase then tells Ikki and Stella about the day Kurado won against Kaito. It was during a stormy night that Kaito and Kurado went against each other in the Ayatsuji dojo. Kurado fought violently and knocked Kaito off his feet. However, Kaito did not back down and continued to fight no matter how badly beaten he was, even telling Ayase not to interrupt the fight. Kaito then prepared his secret technique against Kurado, and it nearly hit Kurado, but he began to cough up blood and was unable to hold the sword, falling to the ground as well, ultimately giving Kurado the win. Winning the dojo, Kurado told Ayase to pack her things as the dojo no longer belongs to her, leaving an angry Ayase holding her beloved father. After Ayase finishes her story, the group arrives at the broken-down Ayatsuji dojo, now run by Kurado and his gang. They go up the stairs and find some people outside the dojo, and Ikki asks them to tell him where Kurado is. They search around for him, and they find him on the couch, and he instantly recognizes Ikki, who challenges him to a duel to regain the dojo. Kurado, seeming skeptical, asks Ikki to show his worth to be his opponent, for which Ikki shows Kurado his gang student ID to prove that he has beaten them all. Kurado accepts Ikki's challenge and brings out his device Orochimaru, and Ikki draws his Intetsu, and the duel begins. Kurado attacks Ikki viciously, not giving him any time to counter him. Ikki tries to counter, timing his counterattack perfectly, but to no avail, as Kurado easily blocks it. Kurado then activates his noble art Jayako Sujin, allowing him to extend his weapon and attack Ikki from different directions at a distance. Ikki gets through Kurado's attacks, and is also able to dodge an attack from behind. He tries to stab Kurado, but Kurado is even able to dodge that attack, and Ikki figures out how Kurado is able to dodge him. He is then pushed back by Kurado after ending Jakotsujin, and Ikki is surprised to see the sudden change in his attack pattern. Ikki can dodge the attack, but he does get cut in the process. He then reveals his understanding of Kurado's power, bringing to light that Kurado's true strength comes from his inhuman reflexes, having the speed of his reflexes at 0.05 seconds compared to a normal human's at 0.3 seconds. Kurado confirms Ikki's explanation and reveals the actual name of his technique as marginal counter. He then uses another technique, Hebigami, attacking Ikki twice with his device. Ikki uses his irregular guarding to stop a direct hit from Kurado's technique, causing Kurado to up the speed of his attack to have 4 attacks simultaneously, allowing him to cut Ikki twice in the chest, as he is not able to block all of them. Kurado then begins his violent assault on Ikki, hitting him repeatedly and leaving mark after mark on him. Ikki, however, begins to smile at blocking Kurado's attacks, reminding Ayase of her father during his fight with Kurado. Ayase intends to step in to stop the fight, however. Stella stops her, pointing out that Ikki is having too much fun to be stopped now. She then asks Ayase if Kaito actually went down in mortification. She points out that maybe Kaito didn't enjoy being a swordsman who was just rusting away and did enjoy it when someone took him on head-on. Ayase then remembers the day of her father's defeat and believes that Kaito was apologizing to Kurado, saying sorry that he had to be the way he was. Stella then notices that Kurado has a weakness, since it takes more energy to use marginal counter, causing him to run out of stamina rather quickly compared to Ikki. Ikki and Kurado, while at a standstill, converse, with Ikki asking Kurado if Kaito had fun like they are having right now. Kurado confirms that Kaito was smiling, as someone who couldn't smile at a deadly battle wasn't worthy of the title of Last Samurai. Ikki then promises Ayase that he will get back the dojo for her, as he charges at Kurado, who uses his technique, Yamato no Oroki, causing Orochimaru to seem like it has 8 heads. Ikki charges through the heads of Orochimaru, with Kurado realizing that he is using the same technique Kaito had tried to do. Kurado then charges at Ikki, and the two swordsmen collide. Kurado is seen having dropped to one knee and having a cut on his chest, while Ikki is still standing. Ayase then recognizes the technique as the last secret technique, Teini Mohu. Afterwards, Stella tells Ayase that Ikki must have used blade steel to learn it, as he did the same thing to her, and she asks her to bother about it. Kurado's device disappears, and he asks Ikki's name, to which Ikki introduces himself. Kurado then slumps away, telling Ikki they will finish their battle at the Seven Sword Festival. When Ikki asks about the dojo, Kurado tells him he can do whatever he wants with it, stumbling away from the place. Ikki's device then disappears, and he stumbles, but is held up by Stella. Ayase apologizes to Ikki and believes herself to be unworthy to carry on her father's sword style. But Ikki tells her that it is thanks to her memorizing Kito's sword style to the very last inch that he was able to win, telling her she is the true successor to the last samurai. Ayase then goes outside and puts the Ayatsuji dojo sign back up. Ikki and Stella are seen sitting at the park, where it is revealed that Ayase has admitted to cheating during her match with Ikki, resulting in her getting disqualified from the selection battle and being suspended from school for 10 days. Afterwards, Ikki receives a message from Ayase stating that Kaito is conscious again and that he tries to hold hands with Stella, but they are interrupted by Nagi and Shizuku. They try to make it look like they were about to thumb wrestle, resulting in Shizuku and Stella arguing. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Ayase is seen holding her conscious father's hand. Stella and Ikki, after winning their 12th consecutive match, are seen on the bus going to Okutama for training camp, as Kurono describes it. Shizuku and Nagi are seen at a train station, and Shizuku is very upset about not being able to stop Stella and Ikki from being alone on the trip, as both Nagi and she can't go due to prior engagements. Nagi, however, comforts Shizuku by telling her that it isn't going to be a romantic getaway for them. Afterwards, Stella and Ikki are seen on the mountain trail, and Stella has become cold, as shown by her sneezing. Ikki offers her his coat, and as Stella and Ikki start to become closer to each other, Ikki notices the student council at the top of the mountain. Stella and Renren begin to play badminton as soon as they arrive, and Ikki and the other members of the student council watch. The student council informs Ikki that they didn't come to just play around, as both Ikki and Stella have a business. Much to Ikki's surprise, it is revealed that student representatives will be coming in a month, so the student council was asked to clean the lounge they are currently staying in, and Ikki and Stella were roped into this, as the student council needed more manpower to clean up the place. Utokata comments that Tuko wanted to meet with Ikki, however, she is not at the lounge as she is currently running an errand. Shizuku is then seen in the Kurogane household, and upon going to her room, she happily sees her cat. Stella and Ikki are then seen outside the lounge asking the student council if they can go to the waterfall. The student council agrees to let them go, but Ikki notices that Stella seems a bit off before they head off. During the walk, Ikki can see how weak Stella is becoming, but Stella brushes it off as though it's nothing and keeps walking to the waterfall. Meanwhile, Shizuku is seen in her room looking at pictures of her brother, along with her cat, when she is interrupted by one of the maids of the Kurogane household, telling her that the master, Shizuku's father, is waiting for her. Stella is then seen being very weak and red, barely able to stand up. Ikki realizes that Stella's condition is serious and decides to take her back to camp as it begins to pour rain on them. Ikki changes plans to find them a cabin where he can create a fire for them. He figures out that Stella's illness is a fever, and he tells Stella to take off her wet clothes, and he also takes off his clothes to make her feel less embarrassed, reminding Stella of the first time they met. He then helps Stella take off her clothes as she is barely able to take them off on her own. After he is able to unhook her bra, Stella asks Ikki if he wants to do it. Ikki refuses, however, as he does not want to taint the relationship by doing the deed, as he wants to be able to stand proudly and say he loves her in front of both his and her family. The phone rings, and Ikki answers it, telling the person over the phone that they are in the mountain lodge. A person outside looking in at the lodge informs a man in a red suit that they have found them, to which the man in the red suit decides it's time to go wild. In the Kurogane household, Shizuku goes to her father and initially wants to leave as she only came to the household because of her mother's letter, but finds out that her father forced her mother to write that letter to her, knowing she wouldn't have looked at it if it were from him. Shizuku's father tells her that he wants to know how she is doing, and he is even proud of her for winning 12 matches in a row as she is living up to the Kurogane name. Shizuku asks, in protest, if Ikki made him proud as well, since he has accomplished the same thing. She then asks if he even cares about him at all, to which Shizuku's father tells her that's not the reason, as Shizuku storms off. Ikki and Stella are then seen at the cabin, and Ikki walks out to find a gigantic golem on top of it. The golem smashes the cabin, but not before Ikki saves Stella from its attack. Ikki puts Stella to the ground as he charges at the golem, summoning Intetsu and using the first secret sword, Saigeki, causing the golem to fall apart. However, the golem just uses the separated rocks to make more smaller versions of itself. He is thrown off to the side by the smaller golems as they move in toward a sickly Stella. He is unable to move, but Stella is saved by the arrival of the student council as Renren carries her away from the golems. Seijo helps fend off the golems as Ikki catches his breath talking with Utakata. Utakata tells Ikki that the golems are most probably controlled by a blazer using steel wire, allowing the blazer the ability to control inorganic objects. As Ikki is at a loss for what to do, a girl with glasses and a Hagun Academy uniform comes in and states that the golems, no matter how far away, are all controlled by wire. The girl, impressively, destroys all the miniature golems and then uses Reikiri to destroy the gigantic one the user of steel wire had created, causing the user of steel wire to be electrocuted. The steel-wired blazer is shown to be with the man in the red suit, who seems undeterred in interrupting them. Ikki then finds out that the person who decimated the rock golems was the person who was in the top 4 of last year's 7-Sword Art Festival and Hagun Academy's strongest knight, Tauka Todao. Shizuku is then seen in her room receiving a message on her student ID, and it is revealed her next preliminary match opponent will be Taka herself, and she smiles at the challenge Toka will provide her. Later, a young Shizuku is seen remembering her time at the Kurogane household. She recalls that because she is a very talented blazer, she could get away with whatever she wanted, being disgusted not only by humans in general, but herself as well. It all changed when a young Ikki slapped her and told her she is wrong, even though he is punished for such actions by the adults. Shizuku then decided that no matter what happens, she will follow her beloved brother, ignorant of what his situation is actually like. Shizuku is then seen going to the ring for her preliminary match. Stella, Ikki, and Nagi are seen reading a newspaper article which believes that the rock puppet who had attacked them is an actual living giant. Ikki tells Nagi that they were unable to find who sent the rock doll. They then begin to talk about Toka, and Stella is worried about Shizuku as Toka is a lightning user. Nagi, however, points out that Shizuku can manipulate the impurities of water so it doesn't conduct electricity. This relieves Stella a little, but Ikki is still worried about Shizuku, wanting her to win but believing that her being unhurt is more important. Shizuku is then seen in the shower, where her train of thought is interrupted by Stella, who seems to be worried about her. After Stella runs off, Nagi appears and takes Shizuku outside to talk. While outside on a bench, Nagi tells Shizuku about Stella and Ikki's worries about her facing Toka, prompting Shizuku to want to win against Toka even more, so her brother will see her as a person who can fight alongside him. Shizuku is then introduced in the ring by the announcer, who also introduces a disinterested Nen as a commentator. She then introduces her opponent, Toka, as both Shizuku and Toka draw out their devices, and the match begins. At the beginning of the match, neither moves an inch, as Nen explains that both of them understand how critical this moment is. Ikki further explains why Shizuku isn't moving, elaborating that Toka's deadly technique, Reikiri, is something that even the seven-sword art champion stays out of range. Ikki believes that Shizuku will stay out of Toka's range, as she excels in a long-range battle style. Shizuku uses Todo Hagun, which freezes the water she conjures, freezing the entire arena, and she also uses Surodan, a move that uses water slashes on a moving Toka. She jumps away from the closing-in Toka and activates Shoha Suiren, causing a huge gush of water, making a type of wave. The water in the wave is then used to attack Toka. However, Toka counters by slashing lightning against each attack. She then begins to slide on the ice and uses the advantage she has over Shizuku against her as she forces Shizuku to continuously make ultra-pure water. Toka, however, is caught in some ice, and Shizuku launches a huge ice pillar on top of her. Toka, however, destroys the ice by plunging her sword, still in its scabbard, through the ice. The crowd becomes excited about the prospect of the match, seeing it as being neck and neck, although Ikki sees it differently. Shizuku begins to think about how Toka was able to best her trap, believing that Toka may be seeing something she can't. Totakata is seen at the match talking with Kanata, and he admits that the match seems to be very close, from long range at least. Shizuku is then pushed back by Toka, but is still able to launch slashes of water at her, although it is easily blocked by her opponent. Shizuku thinks to herself, but Toka takes advantage of her second thought and attacks her, being able to completely envelop her in lightning. However, the Shizuku she cut is revealed to be just a clone made of water, but she is still cut by Toka's sword. Toka then begins an onslaught on Shizuku, and Shizuku is barely able to keep up. The commentator looks to Nena for her thoughts, but she seems to have disappeared. Ikki notices that Toka is using the same technique Nain had done when they met before Ikki's first preliminary match against Kirihara. Neni appears and confirms Ikki's assessment and tells him that it is called Nukiashi, a combination of stealthy steps and breathing techniques from an ancient martial art. Ikki then explains that Nukiashi is confusing Shizuku's subconscious into registering her movements as unnecessary information, and Kurono appears, stating that what Ikki said is right, and explains that both Toka and Neni learned from the same master, Nyango Torajiro. Ikki states that unless Shizuku has something to break Reikiri, she will lose, prompting Stella to cheer Shizuku on. Shizuku smiles at hearing Stella cheering her on, although she doesn't admit it, and uses her water to get rid of her cuts, thinking that she wants to go to the Seven Sword Art Festival along with everyone else, getting ready for her final confrontation with Taokwa. Shizuku uses her abilities to attack Toka, using the flasks of water she brought with her to create even more ice, which Toka slides on, getting into close range with Shizuku. Toka cuts Shizuku with her sword, but it is revealed to be a clone, and she looks behind her to see several more clones. Toka cuts each one of the clones, and is surprised as Shizuku uses Byakuya Kekkai to cause fog in the arena, allowing her to be the only one to move freely. Shizuku then uses Hisujin, a technique that allows her to cover her own weapon in water. She uses the water from the clones to keep attacking Toka as Shizuku comes in and tries to finish her off. However, Toka sees through the plan and uses Reikiri before Shizuku is able to attack her. The fog clears, and Shizuku falls, ending the match in Toka's victory. Afterwards, Shizuku is seen in the hospital in the middle of the night, finding Nagi, Stella, and Ikki with her. She asks them to leave, and Stella and Ikki respect her request, although Nagi stays. While outside in the hallway, Ikki is seen happy that Shizuku has become strong. In Shizuku's room, Nagi holds her tightly and tells her she did well. Not being someone Shizuku wants to protect or beat, she begins to cry in Nagi's arms. Itsuki is then seen in his office, finding out that Shizuku has lost, and the man in the suit is seen beside him, wondering what he should do about the problem, to which Itsuki gives him the go-ahead to do as he pleases. Afterwards, Stella is seen participating in a preliminary match, defeating her opponent easily, winning her 14th battle. After the match, Stella and Ikki walk in the forest, where Stella reminds Ikki of their promise to each other, which is fighting each other in the finals of the Seven Sword Art Festival. Ikki and Stella then kiss each other on the lips. not knowing there is a cameraman in the forest taking a picture of them. Later, Ikki is seen in Kurono's office, speaking with Kurono, and she asks Ikki if he knows a man named Akaza, to which he replies he does. Kurono tells Ikki that he is part of the Knight Ethics Committee and that he has been around the school. Kurono worries that he may try something underhanded, and Ikki tries to help her, but she refuses as it is her job, as director, to protect the students. Ikki and Stella then go to the student council room, being invited by the student council themselves, coming into a room to find a falling Toka. Toka berates both Utakatata and Renren for not putting away their stuff, and she is met with a very lackadaisical response. She then notices Stella and Ikki and introduces herself. The student council, as well as Ikki and Stella, go to an orphanage, and while the children surround Toka with glee, Utakata tells Ikki that him and Taka grew up in a place like this, and this is why they visit this place. Utakata tries to explain why Ikki and Stella were invited, but the kids remember seeing Stella on TV and crowd around her, and Utakata states that he knew they would be excited about meeting her. The group spends the day playing with the kids at the orphanage, while Ikki, Taka, and Utakata cook. Ikki thanks Taka for saving him as well as fighting his sister. They talk about Taka's noble art's accuracy being increased by her taking off her glasses, naming it reverse sight. After preparing lunch, Ikki is seen staring at Taka, not being able to take his eyes off of her as she serves the kids their lunch. Utakata explains, it is because he is seeing the core of Taka's strength, and these kids are an essential part of who she is. He goes on to explain that in the orphanage, they grew up in an atmosphere that wasn't good. There was even a child who was nearly killed by his own parents. He was very aggressive and always hit Taka, but she never gave up on him, and eventually, he was able to regain his human emotions again. Utakata is even reminded of Toka's words when she said that she wants to prove that anyone can be great, no matter how underprivileged they are. Ikki then questions himself, wondering what his source of strength is. Ikki and Stella then return to find their friends running towards them, informing them about a newspaper that has exposed their relationship. The man in the suit revealed to be Akaza then arrives, telling him that he has a hearing with the ethics committee. Ikki agrees and gets inside the car to go with him to the hearing. As the two of them soon arrive at the ethics committee building, Ikki is seen to be questioned about his relationship with Stella. Meanwhile, Nene is seen at Kurono's office as they discuss the situation at hand. Kurono explains that a branch can't just kick a knight out of the tournament, and Nene suspects that this is the entire reason why Akaza has done what he has. After his first hearing, Ikki is sent into a small holding cell, being informed that his hearing will resume tomorrow morning. Stella is seen defeating her 15th opponent very easily again and leaves the stage to a crowd whispering about her affair with Ikki. Later, Stella looks onto the top bunk of her room, where Ikki used to sleep, missing him very much. Afterwards, Ikki is seen walking with Akaza in handcuffs, where he finds out that he will be having his selection battle at the ethics committee building. Yuri escorts Ikki's opponent, and she tries to talk with him. However, the security guard escorting him doesn't allow it, and Akaza begins the match. Meanwhile, at the academy, Kagami reads aloud that Ikki has won his matches at the ethics committee narrowly. Hearing this, Stella begins to doubt her relationship with Ikki and believes it might be better if she breaks up with him, causing Shizuku to angrily pour water over her face. She tells Stella that Ikki is doing this because he doesn't want his relationship with her to be stained by their lies. As days pass, Ikki is seen fighting against his opponents. In one of his fights, he drops to the ground due to fatigue, and Yuri goes to him and slips him a paper using her illness of coughing up blood as a distraction. Ikki goes back to the cell and opens the paper to find a lock of Stella's hair, giving him relief. Ikki then tells Akaza that he wishes to speak with his father. Although he initially refuses, he is informed that Itsuki has requested to speak with Ikki. He is then forced to allow this, and he believes that Kurono is the reason for this. Afterwards, Ikki goes to Itsuki's office to talk with his father. Itsuki recognizes that Ikki has won his selection matches, and Ikki asks his father if he wins the Seven Sword Art Festival, would he recognize him? Itsuki tells Ikki that he wasn't recognized not because he was weak, but because it was futile to teach him anything, as it would probably end with mediocre results, like the ones he is producing now. Ikki then realizes that his father didn't hate him, he just didn't believe he could do anything, causing him to cry and even dishearten, realizing that the bond between him and his father was broken from the beginning. He is then seen very fatigued, fighting his preliminary battles one after the other, becoming more and more tired, thinking that it was foolish for him to ever believe that he would ever get his father's approval. Later, he is informed that his final opponent for the preliminary rounds will be Touka Todo, and Akaza tells him that they will no longer pursue him if he wins in the public eye. Later, while sitting in his cell, Ikki begins to doubt the value of his strength after his encounter with his father. Meanwhile, as Touka speaks with her mom on the phone, Shizuku arrives. Utakata swiftly opens the door and welcomes her, followed by Touka apologizing for asking her to come, and she inquires if Shizuku knew that Ikki would be her next opponent. Shizuku confirms that she did, and voices her concern about the Federation's questionable methods. Touka admits this, but she has no choice but to accept the situation, and though she has heard about Ikki's poor condition, she believes he will give his all to defeat her on the battlefield. She adds that she can't afford to hold back against him and must face him with everything she has. Touka then requests her to ask Ikki to withdraw from the battle, and Shizuku replies that she needs time to think about it and later consults Nagi on whether she should stop Ikki from participating. Nagi advises that the decision is up to Shizuku, as she is the only one in the family Ikki truly opened up to, and she understands Touka's strength from her own past battle with her. Touka, meanwhile, begins to question whether she would feel proud of reaching the national competition under such circumstances. Utakata reminds her that the match might be manipulated by members of the ethics committee for their own gain and urges her to fight in a way that she can take pride in. Meanwhile, Stella is practicing for her own battle, and later, the final school selection match is announced with 6 matches in 6 different locations, and the winners will receive tickets to the 7-Star Battle Festival. Sometime later, Stella faces Mizuki Ohinata, one of the school representatives, and the audience eagerly awaits the battle between Ikki and Touka, which is scheduled to be telecast on TV. The director and Nene discuss Ikki's upcoming match, and how Akaza could have manipulated this situation to fix Touka as Ikki's opponent, and that he has no other choice but to win against her. Just then, the legendary battle god, Nyango, arrives, much to Nani's annoyance and surprise. They bicker for a while, and the director welcomes him, asking if he came to see Touka. Nyango informs her that although Touka is his favorite pupil, he actually came to see Ikki's performance because he is from the Kurogane family. Suddenly, Akaza joins the conversation and suggests that the match might be cancelled. The announcement states that Ikki has not arrived yet, and if he doesn't show up within 15 minutes, Touka will be declared the winner. The director questions Akaza why Ikki hasn't come yet, as he promised that the Federation would bring Ikki in their car. He simply shrugs and tells her there might have been a miscommunication, and when he went to pick him up in the car, Ikki had already left by himself. He coldly tells her that Ikki is not a child, so he should be fine unless he collapses on the way, and then he laughs evilly. Meanwhile, exhausted, Ikki thinks of his grandfather's words and struggles to reach the campus. Doubt rises in him if he had irresponsibly chosen to live by his grandfather's motto of not giving up, and hence having to constantly live beyond his abilities. His doubtful self asks him how he can defeat Touka when nobody wants him, and tells him that's why he ends up with a weak sword. Just then, Shizuku finds him and holds him against her, telling him that she doesn't want him to fight Touka, but she won't stop him either. She expresses that she just wishes to see him happy and wants him to keep smiling. Everyone, including the students he trained, the members of the student council, Yuri, Kagami, and the others encourage and cheer him on. Shizuku reminds him that he has encouraged everyone, and that they all dream through him, and Ikki is not alone. He finally sees Stella, who excitedly waves at him and shows him the medal she got from winning her battles and finally getting a chance to participate in the 7-Star Festival as they promised earlier. With his new determination and purpose, Ikki decides to take part in the battle and arrives at the arena. Touka and Ikki enter the battlefield, and the crowd eagerly waits for the fight to begin. Touka apologizes to Ikki, confessing that she couldn't help but get excited about their battle ever since she first saw him. Ikki shares the same feeling, promising not to show a shameful fight to her or anyone who supported him. He swears to give his strongest effort to beat her, and they summon their swords to start the final battle. Ikki initiates his opening attack and calls his ultimate technique Itushura at the start, shocking everyone. Stella, however, remains calm, believing he decided to fight straightforwardly without using any tricks to win. Toka realizes if she manages to avoid his attack now, she will surely win the battle. Ikki may be inferior in strength compared to Toka, but he puts his all into the extreme moment to land one perfect swing. Toka prepares to counter with her ultimate lightning slash attack, but Ikki summons his seventh sword and strikes her before she can counter, and she collapses on the ground. Thus, Ikki emerges as the winner. Shockingly, Akaza questions if Toka lost on purpose, but Nyango explains that Toka used all her power to counter Ikki, who expanded his limit at the last moment to strike her down with something beyond Itu Shura. Nain suggests naming this new technique Itu Resetsu, the man-eating demon. Akaza can't believe it and screams that it is impossible, and he goes to do something to discredit Ikki's success. Meanwhile, the director tells Nene that it is too late, as Ikki has proven himself, and no one can deny him his victory anymore. As Ikki struggles not to collapse, Akaza tries to attack him, but Stella defends him and confronts Akaza for challenging Ikki in such a condition with her sword, and rushes to Ikki, expressing her love for him, just the way he is. Ikki realizes that Stella's warmth is what saved him and asks her if she would become his family. She accepts the proposal and agrees to be his bride. Everyone cheers for Ikki and Stella, and Shizuku also accepts the reality of their relationship. Meanwhile, Itsuki receives a call from the Emperor of Vermillion, Stella's father, who informs him that he found out about Ikki's proposal to Stella. Itsuki quickly apologizes, but the Emperor dismisses it, suggesting that their kids should be kept out of the adult schemes and wishes for their happiness. Later, the winners of the selection match for the 7-Star Festival are announced, and they are namely Ikki, Kanata, Nagi, Stella, Kikyo Haya, Gurai, and Botan Hayagure. They are set to participate in the 7-Star Festival as the school representatives, and the director calls Toka to the stage, where she announces Ikki as their new president, and the audience cheers for him as their leader. She expresses her pride in him and encourages him to carry the hopes of those who lost and to reach the top of the 7-Star tournament with the school's flag, and he promises to do so. Later, Ikki confides in Stella that he used to think he didn't care about others' opinions as long as he knew his worth, but being acknowledged by others actually feels good, especially if it's by someone they like. That's all for today's recap. For more thrilling stories and updates, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications on our latest content.